Court decision that could impact the future of executive power in America. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Sandra Smith. It is Friday morning.
Indeed it is. Nice to see you, Smitty. I'm Bill Hemmer. Good morning. Two of the most significant cases this term now hang in the balance. On the docket, yet to be decided, the constitutional basis for adding a question about citizenship on the census and whether or not courts should block states from drawing partisan electoral maps. Shannon Bream is live at the Supreme Court. She's on standby officially. Explain to us what is at stake today. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Bill and Sandra. Well, this first case that we're looking for is the census case, whether or not this question about citizenship should be included in the 2020 forms. Now, there's a sense of urgency here because those forms need to get to printing. The government has stressed we need a decision as soon as possible. We got to get that work underway. Opponents have said for this, they worry that people who are in minority populations, those who may have any question about their residency or citizenship, aren't going to fill out the forms because they're going to be intimidated or worried about answering that question. Their argument is then those people will be undercounted for purposes of congressional representation, for federal funding. So they've really fought hard to show that there is some correlation between including that question and not getting an accurate reading. The administration has said all along there's a legitimate purpose for including this question and that we want to count the people who are here and who can be a part of the legal voting process. So that's a big one we're waiting for. I would expect it's going to be a very close case when we do get it.
Not with regard to gerrymandering, some of the lower courts have thrown out, and they've ordered some states to go ahead and redo their districts. That is on the docket. How could that affect elections as well, Shannon?
Yeah, just across the street from us here at the court is Capitol Hill, and everybody is watching on both sides for these two gerrymandering cases, one out of North Carolina, one out of Maryland. In both cases, the parties in control there, one's Democrat, one Republican, have tailored the districts there to benefit their party. So the Supreme Court has never struck down this concept of partisan gerrymandering, and it's going to be very interesting to see if they decide in these one or two of these cases to get involved there and say, listen, parties in power, there has to be some limit on how they draw these different districts to benefit themselves, because clearly you can see statistically it does work when people are able to do those districts. You watch the elections, it benefits the party in power. So we'll see. That could be coming down today as well.
All righty. So, Shannon, thank you. You're on standby at the Supreme Court. If they happen, we'll bring you back. Shannon Bream, thank you.
Well, the U.S. and Iran teetering on the brink. A stunning new development. President Trump just moments ago saying he ordered strikes on Iran but pulled the plug 10 minutes before they were set to go down. This after Iran shot down a U.S. Navy drone flying over the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump tweeting this just a short time ago: "We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites when I asked how many would die. 150 people, sir," was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it. Not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone. I am in no hurry. Our military is rebuilt, new, and ready to go. By far the best in the world. Foreign Affairs correspondent Ben Hall is joining us now live in studio here in New York. Benjamin, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. And President Trump saying there that he called off the strike as he wanted to avoid those 150 deaths. But according to Iran, President Trump actually made a final attempt at dialogue last night, sending a back-channel message to the Iranians via Oman, saying he wanted to talk. There's no word on whether they would take up the offer. The decision to attack was made after the RQ-4 Global Hawk drone was shot down on Wednesday evening. This is video from Iranian state television today after they claimed to have recovered debris. The operation to strike Iran was already underway last night. Planes were in the air and ships were in position when word came down to stand back. All day yesterday, though, President Trump gave nothing away.
Iran made a big mistake, and they made a very bad mistake.
How will you respond, Mr. President? How will you respond?
You'll find out.
Are you willing to go to war with Iran?
You'll find out. You'll find out.
The prospective targets included the radar installation and surface-to-air battery in near Gorok that was used to shoot down the high-altitude drone, which President Trump said was unarmed and unmanned and over international water, adding it would have made a big difference had someone been inside. There are also now reports that Israel are concerned that the administration has not been strong enough on Iran. Israeli officials saying that without some kind of military action by the U.S., even a limited one, they believe the Iranians will continue to escalate. And amid the heightened tensions, National Security Advisor John Bolton will travel to Israel on Saturday for a trilateral summit with his Israeli and Russian counterparts. Some believe that Russia may be the only country that has leverage over Iran and could now help to de-escalate tensions.
Fascinating developments over the last 24 hours. Benjamin Hall, thanks.
Thanks, Ben. With us now, Ambassador Danny Danon, Israel's ambassador to the UN, here in studio. And, sir, nice to see you.
Good morning.
What is your message today?
The Iranians are panicking. They are under pressure because of the sanctions, and they are trying to create escalation by mining the tankers, by shooting down the drone. They want to see the US and the European giving in and say, okay, we are lifting the sanctions. They are actually blackmailing the US and the Europeans, and I think the answer to that should be more sanctions, more pressure on the Iranians, because they want to come back, that we will come and say, okay, we forget about the sanctions, let's move on. So they are escalating the situation. The US will decide when and how to retaliate.
So does Israel believe that more sanctions is the way we should pressure Iran?
Absolutely. And I speak mainly to the Europeans because they are trying to speak with them, to negotiate with them. It doesn't work. The sanctions led by President Obama, that is the only approach to put more pressure on Iran. And I call the Europeans, France, Germany, the UK, to join the US, to apply more sanctions. It's affecting the Iranian economy. That's why they are doing what they are doing today. It shows that the sanctions are very effective.
All right. So there are those who argue another point, and that is without an effective U.S. response, Iran will not change behavior, and it will not de-escalate. Do you agree with that?
So the U.S. will have to decide when it will react. You know, whether it's God forbid somebody will be killed from the U.S. armed forces, whether it will be another attack on a drone. But, you know, the president struck Syria twice in the past. And we all know that the capabilities of the U.S. are meaningful. Once the U.S. will decide to retaliate, it will be very painful for the Iranians. We all know that.
President Trump has received criticism in the wake of all of this for pulling out of the nuclear deal and what the impact of that has been. Senator Lindsey Graham took that head on. Here's the senator.
The Ayatollah's to blame. We didn't sink anybody's ships. We didn't blow up any pipelines. We didn't go in and dismember Yemen. We're not the largest state sponsor of terrorism. So what are they trying to achieve? They're trying to bring Trump back to the negotiating table through intimidation.
What do you think about that?
So I agree with Senator Lindsey Graham. I think we all support the decision of the president to pull out from the Iran deal. That was a bad deal, and we are still paying the consequences. We are paying the price for this bad deal. So we support this attitude to put more sanctions, put more pressure. But if the Iranians will continue with provocations, I think the time will come that we will have to pay a price for that.
The other thing Lindsey Graham said yesterday is that the Japanese prime minister went to Iran and said, let's talk. And the time that he was there, a Japanese tanker was attacked in the Persian Gulf. And he said, Graham said, Iran should expect severe pain.
So that's what I tell the Europeans. You are trying to hug them, to negotiate with them. At the same time, the Iranians are sponsoring terrorism in Europe. They send terrorists to Europe. They spend $7 billion a year on terrorism. Look at the Middle East. Wherever you see chaos, you will find the fingerprints of Iranian money, whether it's in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, even in Gaza, we find the fingerprints of the Iranians.
Well, Lindsey Graham also said is what he worries about the most is the conflict between Israel and Iran. The response from Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has been this. He put out this statement: in the last 24 hours, Iran has intensified its aggression against the United States and against all of us. And I repeat my call for all peace-loving countries to stand by the United States in its effort to stop Iranian aggression.
So we have no border dispute with Iran. We have no economical dispute with Iran, but still they will focus their hate and their aggression against Israel because we represent the same values of the U.S. in the region. So we are there, but they are against the U.S. and Europe as well. And I think we have to come together, all the Western democracies, and stop Iranians' aggression. And the way to do that is to put more sanctions. And it's not against the Iranian people. I'm saying to the Iranian people, we support you. We know that you are suffering. It is about the regime that puts all its efforts to support aggression and terrorism.
The objective there is to try and get the people to turn on the leadership, and the economy right there is really on bended knee and could go down even further. It's caused quite a bit of pressure on the Iranian people, as you rightly point out. This weekend, there's a big meeting in Israel. John Bolton will be there, so will his Russian counterpart. What will come of this, do you believe, sir?
The fact that you have a meeting of these important people coming together to discuss regional issues is important, and we are honored to host them in Jerusalem. I think the focus maybe would have been on Syria, but today we see what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz and in the region of the Gulf. I am sure they will spend a lot of time on this issue.
Well, Ben Hall just said Russia is our best chance to get cooperation. Do you agree with that?
I think Russia, China, the Europeans, they have to understand, they have to take side. You cannot support the Iranians. You cannot allow them to do whatever they are doing. You have to apply pressure on them.
Ambassador, we are approaching a big election. The president just announced his re-election campaign for 2020. One of the candidates on the left, the front runner for the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, is placing blame squarely on President Trump for what we are seeing happen with Iran. Here's Joe Biden. I'm sorry, it was a tweet. He said this: President Trump's Iran strategy is a self-inflicted disaster. Two of America's vital interests in the Middle East are preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and securing a stable energy supply through the Strait of Hormuz. Trump is failing on both counts, said Joe Biden.
We have enough politics in Jerusalem. We actually have elections in September 17th, so I will not get involved in your politics. But I will say that pulling out from the Iran deal was the right decision of President Trump. And it's not only us, the Israelis, saying it. It's the Saudis, all the moderate Arab countries in the region support the decision of the president to pull out from the agreement, because otherwise the Iranians would have been able to build a bomb and threaten not only tankers and drones, but threaten countries in the region.
They still may have that capacity. How long do you believe they are? How far are they from having that nuclear capability?
So I don't believe them. I think they're lying. I think that they're lying and they're continuing to enrich uranium. And I think, we revealed documents that in the past, while they were negotiating with the world, they lied to all of us. So I don't believe the Iranians.
What are they lying about, do you believe?
About enriching uranium, about ballistic missile tests. So
suggesting they don't have the capacity, or suggesting they're not going forward with it?
I think that they are continuing with their aspirations to acquire military capability. Those are the facts, and I'm worried that we will wake up one morning, and it happened with North Korea. We woke up one morning and they announced we have nuclear capability.
You're saying they're further advanced than we know?
Absolutely, and I think what we are seeing now is the distractions. They're trying to create chaos. We should focus on the main thing, preventing them from acquiring nuclear capability.
What do you want to see come from this meeting happening, as you just mentioned, with Ambassador Bolton heading over to Israel? What will come from that?
We hope to see more cooperation in the region, in Syria, in the Gulf area. We want to see stability. The Israelis, the Americans, we don't want to see any escalation in the region. But you see the aggression, it's coming from Iran.
Sir, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Spending a few moments with us. Let's see where it goes today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Fox News Alert now, a news conference underway in the Dominican Republic. Seen there following a series of American tourist deaths. We are monitoring this for you. We're going to bring you the news from that as we get it.
Also in a moment here, 2020 Dems, are they going too far? Why the former House Speaker Newt Gingrich argues the left is growing more un-American. Gingrich explains. Our team takes it up. Coming up in a moment right here.
You now have, for example, the president says, "Keep America great," which I think is a great campaign slogan for next year. The Democrats promptly say, no, keep America weak. The president says, "I'm proud to be an American."
Challenge.
The Democrats are beginning to be the party which is a genuinely anti-American party. And that's pretty remarkable. If you were to be a Democrat today and go to a normal Democratic meeting and start talking about how wonderful America is, how great the founding fathers were, how remarkable the Constitution is, you'd be booed off the stage.
Well, that was former Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich on the Ingram Angle last night, saying that the left has become the anti-American party. Oh, right, there's the A-team. Ed Henry is here. Fox News chief national correspondent Cheryl Costoni is the co-host of FBN AM on Fox Business Network, 5 a.m. daily. Doug Schoen is a former advisor to President Bill Clinton and Fox News contributor. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Start this off for us, Ed. What do you think?
Just big picture. I think it's always hard to question the Americanism, the patriotism of either party. I think we should just refrain from that. I think individually in his Fox News op-ed, I saw that Newt Gingrich went after Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez a bit and is using as an example the idea that she's comparing the detention camps, the centers, whatever you want to call them, at the southern border to concentration camps. That was, there's every week it seems like we sit here and what's the latest absurd political thing that was said? that takes the cake. And I do, again, I'd stop short of saying it's anti-American or it's not patriotic, but stop.
How about
why are we saying this?
Anti-Semitic?
There you go.
I say this as a proud American Jew. I saw that, and she said institutionalized concentration camps, and my blood curdled. And that's not a political comment. It's not a partisan comment. It's as an American and as a Jewish American who's proud of my country and proud of Israel.
And it wasn't a slip because she doubled down.
No, that's why I'm saying it, Sandra. I agree.
But then we got into this whole debate over the definition of a detention camp and the definition of a concentration camp. The key phrase in that, with all due respect to you, was never again. She used that.
Yes, I understand that. And when she analogized institutions that were used for the mass slaughter of Jews and others to legitimate institutions of government, whether you like them or not, pursuant to our laws, that's a moral and political obscenity.
Cheryl?
I mean, I think this whole discussion is somewhat troubling. I mean, I have to wonder sometimes what's going on in the Democratic Party. They're turning on themselves more than I think the Republicans are going to be turning on them over the, up until the 2020 election. But I think it is
2016 was pretty rough and tumble.
Here we go. Here we go. But I mean, I think I also too. I was very saddened by those comments as well, and I'm actually an Episcopal. But Doug, I feel the same way. When those comments came out, I just felt sick because I thought, what an absolute insult.
Well, there's been a lot of commentary throughout this. Just come back to Newt Gingrich's comment here about being booed off the stage. Why don't you take that, Doug?
Sure.
From the left, how does that
my
receive?
take is that the Democratic left, as you say, Ed, is not anti-America, but they're anti-capitalism and they're anti-traditional values. Other than Joe Biden, I think most of the Democratic candidates don't accept the central tenets and principles around which our society has been organized. I'm not a socialist.
And to back that up, John Hickenlooper, who's a sensible guy, he was a moderate Democratic governor out in Colorado, key swing state for both parties. He was on the stage in California, 2-3 weeks ago, and said, you can't be for socialism, guys. You're going to lose to Donald Trump. Yeah. And the left-wing activists there booed him, not off the stage, but said, we want to hear socialism. I think Newt Gingrich makes a great point in this Fox News op-ed. He's citing polling data that says a majority of the country kind of likes the term social. They say they like socialism because they think it's about helping people. It's about doing good. And Trump campaign officials have told me this privately. So they're trying to shift the message. Because then when you, in a second question, say, yeah, but it's like Venezuela and it's this, and you get into the details, then people are not so much for it. So what the Trump camp is trying to do is say it's about free markets versus government control. Because the word socialism is confusing to some people. There are other people in the country. Socialism is not confusing. It's bad.
Okay, let's President Bernie Sanders. You want to see what the stock market's going to do if that happens? That is one of the most frightening things right now. And one of the things I think the Republicans, and especially the president, should still do is talk about all the good things that are going on right now. Do you really want to lose the S&P at all-time records that hit last night? You know, the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ this month alone up over 7%. All the things that are going on right now, whether it's China,
if you're anywhere, all our best is on sale right now for this 4th of July clearance sale. If you're looking for the best quality, selection, and value, Fortune Off Backyard Store is the place to shop. So go ahead.
In that op-ed, the point, keeping America great, the president's campaign slogan for 2020, is exactly what Trump has done. Kimberly Strassel has a bit of a different take. In her piece, she says, make America even greater. In that she writes, new and undecided voters, or those who have soured on Mr. Trump, understand this president comes with drama. They require fresh reasons to give him 4 more years. And a campaign that mostly highlights first-term accomplishments is also a reminder of what didn't get done. It's not a position of strength.
Yes, that is a fair point, because I think there was big success in the president's launch. The crowd, the energy, the enthusiasm, which should be with the opposition party. When you've been in power, they should have the energy. He's got the energy, and he raised, what, 25 million bucks in 24 hours? Yeah. That is big money. But I would say, he didn't outline a vision. He has time. It was only one night. But he didn't say what he would do with 4 more years. There's a lot of grievance about the past. He needs to start looking forward.
Well, she pointed out, I think, of that in the same piece that Sandra's citing, you know, talk more about infrastructure, which is usually something that's bipartisan. Talk about actually doubling down and making those tax cuts permanent. The individual, the corporate, you know, and really start to push for maybe more deregulation, which has been good for the economy.
How about an agenda that focuses on health care, on immigration, Certainly, Cheryl, you're exactly right. He should talk about the old-time.
Are you talking about Democrats or Republicans right now, Doug?
I'm saying that Cheryl was right to say that President Trump should trumpet the economy.
You know, would it behoove your own party to focus their message?
Well, they should talk about the income inequality, the lack of training and retraining that exists for working-class voters. Neither side has a proactive agenda.
Think about Bill Clinton in '96, right? He's running against this experienced guy in Bob Dole. You might be the Republican equivalent of Joe Biden, right? It was bridge to the 21st century.
Right.
He was looking forward. You know all about
I
it.
did it.
Right. This was yours.
Guys, there's still time to do this, okay?
I said it was only one night.
The election's 500 days away.
But we need it today.
Strauss's ideas are, right, we did. For purposes of this
panel, we need it right now.
She talks about more tax reform. She talks about Supreme Court nominees, government reform, another bipartisan pitch on more criminal justice reform.
Look, if they can do tax reform for individuals, the big mistake was eliminating the SALT deduction in blue states and not cutting personal rates more. If they can come out with a platform to do that and have the Democrats who want to increase taxes, Republicans cut individual income taxes, that is a winning issue.
Amen. No, I mean, making those tax.
I'm for Biden.
But you're right.
I'm not for Trump, but that's really what he should be doing.
You're right about that SALT deduction, because that actually has hurt them, because so many Americans filed their tax returns this year and got a big old shock in it.
Exactly.
And a lot of those are look, that may be the undecided voter that the Republicans.
This has been kind of an interesting moment for the front runner for Democrats, Joe Biden, and whether or not his strategy to bring up race so early on in his campaign is backfiring. Wall Street Journal basically says that. Talks about his race card education. Lindsey Graham, in an incredibly important moment where he takes the back of Joe Biden and said this.
I don't want Joe Biden to be president for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that I like about Joe Biden, he's a decent man. There's not a racist bone in his body. He is my friend. And what he did back then and what he will do in the future is try to find common ground with people he disagrees with. If that can't be done, America's best days are behind us.
Obviously, that was
brings us back to the Newt Gingrich op-ed, because there are some of the Democratic Party who are so crazed right now, they're trying to turn Joe Biden into a racist.
Which is ridiculous.
Well, that's
I covered the Senate for a long time. I heard Joe Biden in many Senate floor speeches over the years, not just the one that was cited this week, where he cited folks like James Eastland, who were segregationist Democrats, who evolved over time, but their records were bad, no doubt about it. And Biden cited them by saying he worked with them even though he disagreed with them. Right. He didn't say he agreed with segregationist policies, and he said he went to the Judiciary Committee as a new member and fought them and beat them on
voting rights.
So here's the hang-up. People like Cory Booker are not taking that.
But they should be honest about what is real record.
Booker's campaign says this from the call yesterday. Cory shared directly what he said publicly, meaning the conversation between Biden and Booker, including helping Vice President Biden understand why the word boy is painful to so many. Cory believes that Vice President Biden should take responsibility for what he said and apologize to those who were hurt. My feeling, my thought then goes to, how directly do they go after him on this next week when they're on the stage together?
I think they're going to. I think their strategy is to knock him out and believe that for the rest of the field, it'll be much smoother sailing. And I think it's absolutely contrary to the Democratic Party's interest. I think everything Lindsey Graham said, save that he didn't want him president, would be my own worldview and ideas. And the fact that we're committing fratricide on Joe Biden now is a friendly fire harbinger of ill.
I'm actually shocked that race baiting is actually already beginning, and we're not even to next week in the Democratic primaries. And it's very, I mean, look, Cory Booker, I'm sorry, but isn't he Spartacus? Right, remember the Kavanaugh hearings? I mean, he shouldn't be kind of taking cheap shots at somebody who may indeed be his candidate that he's going to have to endorse at some point.
But to Bill's point,
this is desperation.
At Bill's point, at those debates, folks like Cory Booker stuck at 0, 1%, 2%, whatever it is, they got to take shots.
Exactly.
So some will go for broke. Thanks to all three of you.
Yes,
okay?
See you this weekend.
See you.
All right.
Ed, Cheryl, Doug, thank you. In a moment here, more breaking news. A large explosion rocking a major American city.
The fire is not under control yet. right now, companies are making sure that the fire does not spread as best they can.
So what now? We are learning about that huge refinery blast. We're live from the scene in a moment here.
And top Republican lawmakers saying the more they dig into the actions taken by the FBI against the Trump campaign, the more leaking and bad actors they find. Ohio Congressman, there he is, Jim Jordan. He is here to weigh in on all of that next.
It's not only that they knew that it was false, then they actually worked with the media to make sure it gets reported so they can use the same media reports to justify their surveillance.
Massive fire overnight breaking out in a major U.S. city. Here's the scene at a Philadelphia refinery. This broke out at a 150-year-old oil refinery, and that is where our own Jackie Heinrich is right now, live in Philadelphia for us. Jackie?
Good morning, Sandra. The fire is still burning, and what hits you first is the smell. From at least a few miles away, you get hit with this nauseating smell of gas, but fire officials, health department says it is safe to breathe. We do want to get straight to that video, though, because that is what tells the story. This was the scene at 4 in the morning. A vat of butane exploded, causing the initial blast. This is a huge complex, the largest on the eastern seaboard. It produces more than 330,000 barrels of oil per day, so it is incredible that nobody was hurt. We're told there were people working close by at the time, and they were able to get out of the way. The fire spread, though, and triggered several more explosions. People reported hearing at least 3 to 5 blasts. It was the smoke that prompted the Department of Emergency Management to tweet out a shelter-in-place order for neighboring streets. The plume stretched several hundred feet into the air, and one man told a local news station he could feel the heat coming off the fire from 5 miles away. Traffic was also shut down for hours, including part of the highway. Just this hour, the Department of Health says preliminary testing found no ambient carbon monoxide, hydrocarbons, which are combustible, or hydrogen sulfides in the air. So the air is safe to breathe, and no evacuations are in place at this time. That being said, though, it still smells like gas from miles away. The complex is actually made up of 2 refineries, and they have their own fire brigade, which is trained to handle emergencies like this. At least 120 firefighters are on scene, still working to put out this fire. The next steps, though, are going to be figuring out what triggered that initial explosion, and of course the cleanup, which could take days. Sandra?
Thankfully, no injuries reported. Jackie Heinrich, thank you.
The big thing that we've got to understand is that there were a number of players at the top levels of the FBI that continued to work with the media in an inappropriate manner in order to spin a narrative that we're still dealing with 2 years later. It's time the American people judge for themselves. Let's declassify everything and make sure that the truth comes out.
Republican Congressman Mark Meadows during a House Judiciary Committee hearing yesterday, his reaction there. The panel continues its investigation of the very origins of the Russia probe. Amid allegations the FBI spied on the Trump campaign and then leaked information to reporters. Our headliner today, Ohio Republican Jim Jordan, ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. Sir, good day to you, and thank you for coming back to our
Good morning.
You were in the room yesterday when Hope Hicks was there. What happened, sir?
Yeah. Well, she couldn't answer a lot of questions, but Democrats knew that before they brought her in. But that doesn't stop them this is, I think, in many ways, just another political stunt from the Democrats. Here's the bottom line, Bill. If the president was falsely accused, do you investigate how the false accusation happened, or do you continue to investigate something Bob Mueller spent 22 months on and come back and said no collusion, no coordination, no conspiracy, and didn't make a decision on obstruction? Do you continue to investigate that? Obviously, the Democrats have chosen the latter, and that's why they bring Hope Hicks in, even though they knew before she even came that she wouldn't be able to answer questions because of the privilege you have when you're a top advisor to the president of the United States.
How would you describe the tone in that room? Did Democrats stay on message?
I was there for the first hour, most of the first hour, when Mr. Nadler did the bulk of the questions. He went right into asking questions about Ms. Hicks's time as an advisor to the president, which they obviously knew was off limits, so it forced White House counsel to object each and every time. Again, I think all this underscores one fundamental thing. This is why the investigation the Attorney General of the United States is doing is so important. Never forget what Bill Barr said 12 weeks ago when he testified in front of the United States Senate. He said there was a failure of leadership at the upper echelon of the FBI. We know that's the case. You know, Comey, McCabe, Baker, Strzok, Page, all these people have been fired, demoted, left, a couple are under investigation by the Justice Department. He said spying occurred. He said there's a basis for his concern about the spying that took place. And then fourth, he said 2 terms that are scary. He talked about political surveillance and unauthorized surveillance. And he's going to get to the bottom of that. That is why his investigation, led by John Durham, is so darn important.
Devin Nunes, the Republican from California, was with us yesterday. He said that he heard there were a lot of questions about her love life. What was your take on that?
No, I had 2 other hearings I had to be at, so I was just there for the first hour of the questioning. I'll have to go back and look at the transcript.
Was that inaccurate,
again,
his characterization, or do you know?
I have to look at the transcript to see what may or not been asked about that. I would hope that they wouldn't ask about those kind of questions. I mean, come on. But this is Jerry Nadler. This is the Democrats. I didn't. Look, as I said, I think this was largely a political stunt. Think about this. They're going to continue to investigate something Bob Mueller spent 22 months on. But even prior to Mueller's investigation, when we deposed Jim Comey last year, we asked him about this, and he said after 10 months of the FBI investigating this, 10 months of them investigating, they had no evidence of any coordination, conspiracy, or collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia to influence the election. So 32 months, 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents, $30 million, 500 witnesses, 2,800 subpoenas, no evidence, but the Democrats say, oh, we're going to bring in Hope Hicks.
Got it.
Even though we know she can't. That's what they did. So this is why Bill Barr's investigation.
I want to move on to this
important.
political piece, but before I do, just one other note on that, since you were in the room. The transcript reveals that the chairman, Jerry Nadler, referenced her as Ms. Lewandowski on several occasions. Did you hear that?
He asked a lot of questions about Corey Lewandowski, even the first hour when I was there.
But she had to correct him and say, no, my name is Ms. Hicks.
And good for her. I'm glad you did correct him. I mean, come on. You're the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, and you're doing things like that, so I'm glad Ms. Hicks
And to be clear,
him.
he did apologize in some way and said that he was preoccupied when she corrected him. I want to move on to this political piece, Hope Hicks' testimony, a gift, political rights. Dempsey, Hope Hicks' testimony is a huge gift in legal battle with Trump, an exclusive interview. Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler also said Democrats would soon sue former White House counsel Don McGahn, Congressman.
Yeah. Again, this is where they're going to go. This is impeachment. They just won't call it that. They don't have the guts to vote on it. But this is an impeachment inquiry, what they're doing. They just haven't officially went down that road and had the vote and called it that. So they're going to do what they're going to do. It's wrong. The American people understand it. They understand that there's no basis for it. But they're going to continue to go down this road, and it's unfortunate. Again, I keep coming back to the investigation that matters. The investigation that matters is the one Bill Barr is doing, where he's looking at this idea. Think about this. Emmett Flood sent a letter to the Attorney General a few weeks back, and he said this: if they can do this to a president of the United States, imagine what they can do to you and I. If they can use one party's opposition research document, dress it all up, make it appear like it's legitimate intelligence, take it to a secret court, get a warrant to go spy on the other party's campaign. If they can do that to a presidential candidate, imagine what they can do to you and I. And that is what is so scary, and why Bill Barr's investigation into the origins of this whole thing is so darn important.
Sir, thank you for your time. Jim Join, the Republican from Ohio.
Thanks, Congressman.
Thank you, guys.
Financial markets keeping a close eye on what's happening in the Middle East. Developments there, tensions escalating between the U.S. and Iran. So could that impact this monstrous run we've seen on Wall Street lately? Stocks hitting all-time highs.